Well, it's time for the Council Roundup. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk.
Now it's time for Greg Bishop and the Council Roundup.
Where each and every week we give you an overview of what happened last night at the Springfield City Council meeting. They meet on Tuesdays. One week it's a council, another week it's a committee of the whole, another week it's a council, another week it's a committee of the whole. So ultimately, we get to the final readings of these measures and the final passage, and that's whenever we have a council meeting, which we had last night. But also last night, you had zoning take up a substantial portion of last night's Springfield City Council meeting. So let's go ahead and just get right on into it. And zoning dealt with a pool. One issue dealt with a pool that a constituent was looking to have placed near Lake Springfield. So the zoning issue brought forward and the resident seeking relief.
Nancy Bremhorst.
So Nancy Bremhorst gets there and she addresses the council, and in particular, she asks the city to allow for her to place a pool close to Lake Springfield, and she addressed the committee to really have the variance to allow for this, and to have a pool set back from the lake a certain distance. So she had this conversation back and forth with Alderman Redpath yesterday at the council meeting.
Ms. Bremhorst, it may be beneficial for you to wait for till that happens. I think it's probably coming within the next year or so.
Well, my health isn't getting any better, sir.
I can't tell you.
I mean, and it has been approved for every other application.
Well, we take
and the Lake Association.
Can I speak? Can I speak?
Sure.
Okay. We take every one of these individually. Every one of those things come in front of us, and we discuss how this is going to go.
Sure.
And we didn't pick yours out of the air somewhere.
First one.
Okay, but bottom line is it's in the floodplain.
So Alderman Redpath raising those concerns. He continues on with his concerns being raised about this particular measure, asking that they put a pool close to Lake Springfield.
It's in a floodplain. It's not a proper place to put a pool.
It is, according to TJ, we're pretty sure it's not in the floodplain.
What's TJ got to do with this?
He's the city engineer who's the FEMA person.
But TJ was not there to address this, and alder people still had ongoing concerns, including Alderman Joe McMiniman, who raised issue with this in particular because it would be the closest to the lake that a proposed pool would be in the city of Springfield.
Approved pools close to the shoreline in the past, but is it correct that this pool would be the closest to the shoreline of any of the others that got to the city council?
By a couple feet.
I'm not asking you, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
sorry,
that is
I don't
correct.
understand how this works.
So the back and forth with a citizen, obviously getting a little contentious there, but something that they continue to push for and to have addressed, and that was the issue of having a pool close to the lake and just how close they could have that to the lake. And they had the lake supervisor, City Water, Light and Power's Doug Brown, get up there to address the city to talk about how this would be indeed the closest that a pool has been to the lake if it's approved.
You know, at some point, the policy should be followed because how close are we going to let the pools get to the lake shore? Because if this one's granted, the next one's going to come, they're going to say, well, I want 5 more feet. The next one's going to come, I want 5 more feet. So at some point, we just need to stop.
So ultimately, the vote for this particular zoning issue of having a pool close to the lake, how did that vote go?
And the motion to deny passes 8 voting yes, 2 voting present.
So there you go. You've got that zoning issue tackled. Next up was another zoning issue in front of city aldermen, and it dealt with a facility that is currently a youth detention facility, but they're wanting to also allow for individuals experiencing homelessness.
For the property located at 2201 South Dirksen Parkway, petitioner is Sangamon County.
And they had an attorney there for Sangamon County. More details.
One principal use on the property consisting of a detention center, philanthropic, institutional, and general office.
So what does this ultimately mean? It's a project that the attorney for Sangamon County says is working with Helping Hands to allow for more services for those experiencing homelessness.
So it's basically an extension of what is already happening, but with capacity to serve up to 85 beds, which is significantly more and will provide an opportunity for more persons who are homeless or houseless at the time to find a place to go temporarily. There's also going to be a significant increase in the type of facilities that are available. For instance, right now it's more or less a dormitory type setting. The new facility will allow for specific spaces for people with specific needs. For instance, those transitioning to housing will have a specific place. Those that are accompanied by a child, which is something that currently there's no service for, there will be a space for those people. There will be quiet rooms and sick rooms to segregate folks that need a quiet room or a sick room for the night.
And the attorney continues with more of the plans here.
What won't take place is there won't be any sex offenders allowed on the premises. The premises that is operated currently by the Illinois Department of Juvenile Justice and the Administrative Office of the Illinois Courts. And per their rules, sex offenders cannot be on the property. So anyone coming into the shelter area will be screened, and if they are a sex offender, they will be removed.
So again, that's an attorney for Sangamon County pushing for the approval of this particular change for Helping Hands to allow for some extended 24-hour operations for people who are experiencing homelessness. Not everybody was on board with this, and in particular, Roy Williams Jr., he was advocating for his constituents who have raised concerns about all of this.
I guess my final question, because we could do this all night, is would you be willing to hold this and meet with this young lady and some of their neighbors on some of their questions?
I don't have authority to commit the county to that.
But Williams continues with his concerns.
I'll end by just saying, a record has been made here. I've spoke for the people. I'm not saying you guys are doing anything wrong. I'm not saying the project is a bad project. I'm just saying, like I asked the consortium when they were here, is this smart? Because I know that you can't make a person get on a bus. I know they can say, I'm walking, and walk through there and walk past all those neighborhoods, through all those schools to get all the way downtown.
Then you get others sounding off on this, including Alderman Ralph Hanauer, who chimed in saying that there's a homeless situation that everybody in the city's having to deal with. Here's Alderman Ralph Hanauer and his thoughts.
Everyone up here on this horseshoe has homeless in their ward. Everyone. We're all affected by it.
But while there may be some homeless populations traversing into Ward 10, Alderman Sean Gregory at Ward 2 says that they don't have housing in Ward 10.
One thing I do agree with you, Alderman Hanauer, on is all of us do have homeless in our wards, and the people will say that the shelters mainly are on in 2, 3, and in Alderwoman's Purchase ward. So they want to see it spread out further out throughout the city.
So we'll get to a lot more of this from last night's city council meeting, and in particular this issue of a facility that currently houses a youth detention facility, but they're wanting to split it to allow for $5 million of renovations, I believe, to allow for Helping Hands to operate out of there as well. I think 80-plus beds would be offered. Low barrier beds, I believe. However, sex offenders would not be allowed in that particular facility if ultimately this is approved. So stay tuned. We'll get to more of that here with Springfield's Morning News. It is the Council Roundup brought to you by Head West Subs. When you want a great sub, you've got to head west. Their downtown location open for lunch and also open for lunch on Saturdays. Head West Subs. And don't forget about
News with Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY.
And it is the Council Roundup with Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk, and we are in the middle of the Council Roundup, brought to you by Head West Subs. When you want a great sub, you've got to head west. But last night at Springfield City Council meeting, they had an ordinance on the zoning. We're still not through zoning, but it dealt with changing a building that's currently a youth detention facility, splitting it in half. $5 million, I think was what it was. They're looking for renovations to then allow for Helping Hands to come in for a year-round shelter with 80-plus beds in it. And I believe it would be a low-barrier shelter, except sex offenders would not be allowed. So the attorney representing Sangamon County there last night addressing this. Here's some of what he had to say moving forward.
I just don't have authority to, number one, hold this, or number two, to agree to hold it, rather, or number two, to stipulate that Sangamon County will meet with anyone. I don't have authority to make that commitment on their part this evening.
I guess there's a funding request that's going to come later, so there's going to be unless that's all been approved, so there would be another public opportunity to go to the county board or come here and get an overview at that point anyway.
I presume that there will be a continued commitment from all levels of government to address this concern.
Sure.
And again, that's the attorney for Sangamon County and this particular project, talking to the mayor. Alderman Redpath chiming in here.
You know, I'm going to vote for this, but I really, there's credence in what Alderman Williams was saying about why can't we just meet with them? Why can't we, be it the county or be it the Helping Hands folks, why can't we just talk to them and try to calm their concerns? The facility's going to go, but the thing is we got to talk to the people and let them know we understand what you're thinking about and we got your back on that.
And they ultimately did approve the zoning variance.
All those in favor of the motion vote yes. Those opposed vote no. The voting is now open.
All right. So that was just another element in the zoning agenda that took up a substantial portion of last night's Springfield City Council meeting. But moving forward, you've got other issues that came up, including the story of a recent death of an individual who has now 2 EMTs facing murder charges in that case. Citizen Tom Schaefer. A lot of you haven't heard from Tom in a while. He showed up last night at the Springfield City Council meeting to address issues surrounding that case, but there's some more things that we got to tackle coming up next for the Council Roundup. It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. The Council Roundup brought to you by Head West Subs. When you want a great sub, you've got to head west. Their downtown location open for lunch. Head West Sub.
92.7 WMAY,
Springfield's News and Talk.
Back with the Council Roundup. It is Springfield's Morning News. Council Roundup brought to you by Head West Subs. When you want a great sub, you've got to head west. Their downtown location open for lunch. Also open for lunch on Saturdays. And don't forget about delivery, Head West Subs. We're hearing moments from last night's Springfield City Council meeting. Zoning happened. That took about half of the meeting. And then they got into a presentation from a researcher looking at how to beautify Springfield.
Presentation with Neil Brumlevy from Massey about the downtown beautification.
So Neil was there to address the city council and gave them a whole bunch of different things to chew on, including the beautification efforts, and also talked a little bit about one of the major focal points.
And then finally, this was not part of the study, but it is within the project area, and so this could lead to its own discussion, but the North Mansion block, obviously, being a key component within our project area.
But he also talked about the importance of certain lighting and certain, thoroughfares being beautified and so on. But all this really came about, according to Mayor Jim Langfelder, because of last week's conversation. If you remember, a lot of it was talking about trash talk.
Yeah, the reason we had you come is because the receptacle discussion we had last week.
Right.
So I appreciate you coming, and that's one area you helped look at, but I think what we're going to do is put it back out for bid.
So if you remember last week, the alder people, they had some concerns about trash cans that ranged in price from, like $1,600 to $2,000 or something like that per trash can that were going to be placed in certain areas downtown. So it led to some interesting conversations about the cost of trash cans. And some people making those trash talk jokes. So funny stuff there. But more from last night's meeting with Nate Bottoms. He was the Public Works Director, talking about how, they're going to send this back out for bid.
Yeah, that's correct. We're going to go ahead and withdraw the bid, and then we want to add more weight to the price and adjust a couple of the other things. Then we're going to put it out to bid shortly so that we can still get them hopefully installed as early as this summer.
Now, Alderman Hanauer was one that complained last week.
Some of the scoring seemed to be a little little off. I've done a lot of RFPs when I worked for the state in a previous life, and just a good example is under the warranty section. A 20-year warranty didn't get scored as high as a 10-year warranty.
So Alderman Hanauer continues with his concerns and
Thank you for doing that. I'm not against getting nice receptacles, but the cost just seems way too crazy. So
ultimately, they held that ordinance for future, so they could put that back out for bid at some point. You then get several ordinances that were brought up dealing with the Convention and Visitors Bureau and the Lincoln Herndon Law Office and a contract with the states to deal with that. And then you also had another measure that would expand a certain zone for the Illinois Finance Authority to come in and provide some financing for various projects around the old state capitol and beyond, including, I think it wraps in the entire business district. So those are just some of the things that they talked about. But then you get to citizens addressing the council. And Tom Schaefer, a lot of listeners are familiar with him. He had a public access TV show for years where he evaluated the city council. He also talked a lot about gun issues and gun rights. But he's been pretty quiet. He used to call this station quite a bit, but he's been pretty quiet. And a couple of weeks ago, somebody asked me, where's Tom Schaefer? Well, Tom Schaefer was there last night at the Springfield City Council meeting to address some issues that he says have put Springfield on the national spotlight, something that he wasn't too happy about, and it deals with that case of an individual losing their life and two EMTs that have been charged with murder in that case. So here's Tom Schaefer addressing the council last night.
I noticed that the incident on North 11th Street with the death of Mr. Owens has made the national news. The ABC Evening News, Inside Edition, CNN, the Scroll on Good Morning America, as well as full coverage on Good Morning America. It seems like the coastal media only covers the Midwest when we have a tragedy or a tornado, which is unfortunate because we have a good community full of good people.
And Schaefer continues on with his comments.
With two paramedics who were previously doing good work for our community, now facing the most serious charge that our criminal statutes allow. We have a good company that's been good to our city for many, many years, facing potential catastrophe with a civil lawsuit. We have bad press. We have truly a community. We have a loss of a family from a young man who was struggling with the issues of his own, including mental health.
And Schaefer continues.
It's going to be an ongoing struggle, but I would urge the police department, the chief, and community leaders to re-examine this crisis intervention team. I think it was the proper move then, and I believe it's the proper move now.
So Tom Schaefer last night in front of the Springfield City Council, and he got into a little bit of a back and forth after his comments with Springfield Alderwoman Kristen DeCenso, who was challenging some of the assertions that Schaefer made last night.
Saying his correct name.
I totally stand corrected, and I totally am embarrassed by that faux pas, and I want to apologize.
Thank you.
His name is Earl Owens.
No.
Moore. Earl Moore Jr.
Correct.
Is his name. I ate at the McDonald's where he was employed at least 50 times.
Yeah.
Over the past decade, and it's a tragic loss for him and his family. I want to apologize very much. I thank you for listening to my concerns.
I'm not finished.
So Alderwoman DeCenso continuing on with her critique of Tom's critique.
One had been previously charged in a wrongful death situation of a child.
And acquitted.
Regardless.
Well, I believe in innocent till proven guilty, Alderwoman.
Well, that's fine. We can agree to disagree.
So Alderwoman DeCenso raising that at least one of the EMTs had been found or charged with some wrongdoing before, but Schaefer saying that that individual was acquitted. They continue their back and forth.
And that you're referring to Mr. Moore as a homeless individual, and
no, I don't believe I did. I believe I referred to him as a person who was suffering a mental crisis.
Okay. Well, that's not really what's been even portrayed in the press. And
Well, it hasn't been portrayed in the press, but the little bit of the body cam footage I have seen, the victim in this was non-responsive, was not really speaking clearly, was really limp, and seemed to be in some sort of an episode of sorts. And cops on scene helping with the EMTs, but the EMTs ultimately putting him face down on a gurney where the individual died of asphyxiation, I believe. I haven't read the detailed death report or the police report, but just watching a few moments of the body cam footage, it's interesting display there. But they continued back and forth last night in front of City Alderman.
I'm not an expert on what happened here, and I was not there that evening, but I think...
But you certainly feel free to criticize somebody who stepped up to speak about an issue that's shocked our community.
Let Alderwoman
I'm not
DeCenso finish,
criticizing
please.
you. I'm trying to correct some misguided statements.
So the back and forth continues. Alderwoman DeCenso and citizen Tom Schaefer.
I'm not an expert on this situation.
Well, I think the way it went could be better.
Would you please stop interrupting me? I didn't interrupt you.
I thought this was a back and forth, Alderwoman.
No, it's not, actually.
I stand corrected again.
Yes, thank you.
If you'd just direct your comments to the chair, I'd appreciate it. Thank you,
Mayor.
So, obviously, things getting a little contentious there, more in the back and forth.
And we're going to have to toughen up because it's going to be difficult for us. And if you think that I'm generalizing, wait till you see those type of speeches taken nationally, trying to slur our community in a sense of loss, in a sense of outrage. Nobody wanted this to occur. So
if it's true, it's not a slur.
Go ahead. Continue.
So I guess it's wrong for me to do it, but it's okay for the alderwoman to do it. So I understand. I understand the dynamic. It's difficult to be up here in a difficult time, but that's okay. We all know who's getting treated fairly. I guess there's all kinds of unfair treatment in the world, including at this horseshoe. But thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Point of order. His time is up.
So again, Tom Schaefer, last night's city council meeting, raising his concerns about a case that is making some national headlines, but Alderman Joe McMiniman addressing Tom Schaefer last night, wanting to add these comments.
You were on a Springfield Fire Department response team. You've delivered babies, as I understand it. You've been out there when no one else was available to help, extraction from car wreck scene. So I'm not asking you to comment. I'm just saying I understand why you're here tonight. And I respect you for, taking the time out to try to comment about something that you're somewhat familiar with, even though, not everyone's going to agree with everything you have to say, of course. But I just want to put that out there, that you do have experience in this type of event.
So that's your Council Roundup from last night's Springfield City Council meeting, brought to you by Head West Subs. When you want a great sub, you've got to head west. Their downtown location open for lunch each and every week. We bring you the Council Roundup here on WMAY. All right, stay tuned. Coming up, we'll revisit the 3 different lawsuits that have